This is Jocko Podcast number 17 with Echo Charles and me, Jocko Willink. It's been 10 years since April 2nd, 2006. 10 years since those of us in 4th Platoon huddled around the radio outside of an Iraqi army post near Camp Ramadi, trying to make sense of the confused and uncertain radio traffic, of the XO's calm and firm voice from the COC trying to determine what truck had been hit and who was missing. 10 years since we drove the road back towards the Gov Center with fear in our minds and hate in our hearts, knowing we had lost close friends, but not yet sure of the names. 10 years since I met my platoon commander on the darkened steps of the Gov Center as he came down from the COC and confirmed which truck it had been. And when I pressed for who was gone, he simply said, "All of them." We hadn't yet learned that one guy who was a fucking hard ass, who wasn't going to let death take another Marine that day, and whose recovery has been an inspiration to all those men who know him. 10 years since I did my best to pass the word to my team with steadfastness, but repeating all of them, revealing me for the 21-year-old I was, through the tears I was trying to hold back. 10 years of trying to figure out what their sacrifice meant, of shifting views on what it was all for in the end. That is something that is still a struggle. But I've found solace and purpose in these facts. Staff Sergeant Eric McIntosh, Corporal Scott Procopio, Lance Corporal Kun Young Kim, and Hospitalman Giovanni Padilla were men who chose to be part of something bigger than themselves. Men who chose to enter a profession of crushingly hard work, sacrifice, and danger, all for the simple purpose of protecting the men around them. Staff Sergeant Mack was the epitome of a fighting Marine, a stud who exuded proficiency and professionalism while also being humorous and approachable. Procopio is without a doubt one of the finest men I have ever had the fortune of meeting. A beast of a Marine who drove all around him with his enthusiasm and good nature. While we were peers, I looked up to him and his natural leadership. I still do. Kim had a quiet reliability about him. Unlike the usual loud gregariousness that people tend to associate with grunts, he was low-key and dependable. And for some reason, I can still see the way a smile would creep over his face when stupid shit was going on, and he'd laugh in a way that made it seem like he was seeing a deeper joke that you didn't get yet. Doc Padilla was new to the company, and my memories of him are vague. But the men who knew him better describe a young corpsman who was enthusiastic about his job. The funny thing with corpsmen is that sometimes you don't need to know much to judge their character, besides the fact that these young men volunteered for one specific duty: to save the lives of their Marines in combat. A more honorable calling is hard to find. It's easy for today to be dark, to get sucked into the trap of loss, regret, depression, and anger. It's easy to drown it in liquor under the pretense of having one for the boys. But this morning, as we prepare ourselves to face the 10th of these days, we think of Scott and his booming laugh. He wouldn't want us sitting around mourning like saps, wasting our precious days, burdened with his death like tormented widows out of some 19th century romance fiction. He'd remind us that we all joined up for the same reasons. We are infantry Marines. We wanted to fight, to energetically meet the enemy in battle and crush him. to serve beside men with whom we would build a bond stronger than most will ever know. While the politics are complicated and the outcomes unclear, one thing is certain. Their sacrifice was not in vain, as it was the sacrifice that warriors make for each other. April 2nd is a day that defines us now, brings us together as brothers. It is a day of remembrance and reflection. A day that gives us reason to look at our lives and say, look, you son of a bitch. This is why you have to live life to the fullest. This is why you must fight every day to be a better man. And then we must just remember that Scott Procopio would call you a pussy for doing the opposite. Semper Fi, gents. We will never forget you. So that was a post that someone forwarded to me that was on Reddit. And it was from an anonymous Marine. Obviously, this Marine was from the 3-8 Marines who we served with in Ramadi, who were just outstanding warriors. And I thought that that tribute, not only to the fallen, but also a form of counsel to his fellow Marines. I just thought that that was an amazing piece of writing, and I wanted to share it with everyone. April 2nd.